And I want to turn now to New York Republican Congressman Mike Lawler, who is on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. They're suffering on both sides. There's no question who started this war, but the retaliation is going to be brutal, and the siege continues. We just heard John Kirby saying that there are, quote, ongoing conversations between the U.S. and Israel about lifting the siege to get some supplies in to the people.
Look, obviously, this is a difficult situation, and a lot of innocent people have been impacted by it. But let's be very clear. Hamas is a terrorist organization that the Palestinian people in Gaza have lived under the oppression of for years. They chose to invade Israel, to slaughter innocent women, children, babies, beheading, and there are consequences for that. The bottom line is Hamas has made it clear, with the backing of Iran, that they want to wipe Israel off the face of the earth and prevent their very existence. And so we, the United States, need to continue to stand with our ally Israel and make it very clear they have the right to defend themselves. There is no moral equivalency here. And I certainly empathize with any innocent person who has been impacted by this. But Israel has a right to defend itself and a right to respond. And we're talking about now over 20 Americans who have been killed. We still have people missing. I have hundreds of constituents who are still in harm's way because they cannot get out of Israel due to the lack of commercial flights available and the failure on the part of our administration to get military planes there to help evacuate, as other countries are doing. And so there are a lot of challenges here right now, but we have to be firm in our resolve to support Israel.
Congressman, there's a lot of misinformation going around as well, but Secretary Blinken described horrendous photos and video that were shown to him by the Prime Minister in his office today of babies riddled with bullet holes and, people burned, a soldier beheaded. I know the IDF and others in the Israeli government have talked about beheaded infants. We haven't seen evidence of that, but that has been what they have said. I know the president repeated that. I'm just saying that we're trying to confirm as well as we can in the fog of war what really happened. It's horrendous enough as it is. I don't want to quarrel with that. And I know that there's a lot of information not getting to the people of Gaza because they have been under Hamas rule now for some 30 years. So that is clearly true. But just to point out that the U.S. is at least urging Israel to try to minimize the civilian casualties, which are causing, criticism from the Secretary General of the UN. There's going to be pressure around the world because this ground invasion, as you know, is going to have horrendous impacts.
Look, Andrea, of course, anytime we are in a situation where there is a war or a military response, of course, everybody wants to minimize civilian casualties. You would hope there are none. But the realities of war, obviously, are that it's inevitable, unfortunately. And so you certainly try to minimize that. But I think, and to be clear, regardless of whether or not you want to say there's no evidence of beheadings, you're talking about innocent babies, innocent children being slaughtered for one purpose, because they're Jewish. This is the worst massacre of Jewish people since the Holocaust. And I think we need to be very clear about this, why this is happening, and what the response should be. It cannot happen. It cannot happen.
And I'm not, by no means am I minimizing that. I've been seeing things and reporting on things in the last 5 days that have horrified me and horrified all of us and all right-thinking people. Let me ask you about the inability of our government to send aid to Israel because of the lack of a speaker. You did not vote for Steve Scalise yesterday. You said you were undecided. Have you made up your mind? We were just talking to another Republican member, Ken Buck, who said that he thought that Scalise was actually losing support as time goes on, and that it might become a compromise candidate, not Jim Jordan or Scalise.
Look, I think the biggest challenge that I have seen throughout all of this, and I've made it very clear, is that we should not have removed Kevin McCarthy to begin with. And you had 8 people team up with 208 Democrats to remove the duly elected Republican speaker against the wishes of 96% of the conference. And so unless you deal with that issue, unless you deal with the fact that throughout the 10 months we've had members who have voted down rules, who have undermined the majority, it's very hard to get consensus. And so what I said yesterday was we should not have left that room until there were 217 votes secured. We are now back in conference, meeting, discussing. The bottom line is we should not leave until we have 217 votes secured for a speaker, whether it's Steve Scalise or someone else. But we need to come together quickly. We need to elect a speaker. I wish we were not in this situation. I voted to keep Kevin McCarthy in as speaker, but here we are. And so we have to get back to the work of the American people. We have to govern. We have to deal with the very real challenges, both domestically and abroad, from Israel and Ukraine to our southern border and the reckless debt that we have accrued. There are real challenges, and we need to govern. And so I'm hopeful we can get a consensus in short order, get on the House floor, elect a speaker, and get back to work.